All right, hey guys, I'm back. Just a few more things to go over with culture. I mentioned earlier that I would talk about ethnocentrism, and ethnocentrism, and we're all guilty of this at some point, is judging other cultures by the values of our own or the standards of our own. So, like for instance, the way that some other countries would do certain things, as far as maybe what the types of food that they would eat, or the type, or how they would prepare their food. We might say, oh well, that's just wrong. That's not the right way to do it. Well, for us, that's true, but for them, it's different. So we can be the U.S. is very ethnocentric, and you also might remember that I mentioned that as a value in the U.S. Then you've got cultural relativism, which is the opposite of that, and that's where you try to learn about other cultures through their perspective instead of looking at it through your own. Because when you look at it through your own, you're not gaining anything. You're just judging and criticizing. Whereas if use cultural relativism, you view it through their eyes and you learn about their culture through the way they do things. So I feel like this country would benefit actually, I don't feel like, I know this country would benefit a lot more from the use of cultural relativism, hoping that maybe one day we'll get much better at that than we are at this point. And I've got two other pairs of cultures I'm going to talk about. We have ideal culture and real culture. And these are short, sweet, and to the point. Ideal culture is the way that things should be, whereas real culture are how things actually are. And the U.S. has a big problem with this. We'll throw out our entire history. We've had a problem with this. A simple way to show, as far as, especially in the last 20 years, is as far as how healthy or unhealthy our nation is. A lot of people like to think that we're healthy, or they like to think if you think about advertising, and they always show very beautiful people with great skin and in great shape, and that's ideal. But the reality is that that's not how American culture is. We're a very overweight, very obese country, and using these ideal body types gives people a false sense of security, gives them a false sense of how the country really is. So that's an example. And also, as far as the racism that's been in our country for hundreds of years, a lot of people, tune that out or act like it's not there, or try to act like they're not, our country has not been racist, or they try to justify racist actions by people in the past, or by actions they do themselves. They try to idealize it. It's not that there's not racism, or that they're not racist, but excuse me. But in reality, the actions that they do, in reality, in real culture, they are. There's so many ways that are racist, so many words and phrases, so many actions. There's so much systemic racism. So that's a big problem in this country as far as being real versus ideal. The reality is that, yes, there's a lot of racism, and it's coming to a head right now. It's starting to boil over more as far as it being put in perspective and put in front of people's faces even more so than it ever has. But there are people who still try to deny that happens. But it's there. It's always been there, and until a lot of changes are made, it always will be, unfortunately. And hopefully, this is the beginning of us changing that conversation, because we need to focus on reality. And real culture in this U.S. is that there's a lot of racism. So hopefully, like I said, that'll change. And the last thing with this chapter is high culture versus pop culture. We've heard the term pop culture a lot, and that's just things that are used to appeal to the middle or working class, the average person. So it can be any number of things, like just everyday fashions, like certain fashion lines, or when it comes to technology, when it comes to apps like maybe TikTok or something, just these different things, that appeal to everyday people, different TV shows. So that's pop culture. High culture are things that are associated with the elite or with the rich, and those things include ballet, opera, classical music, live theater. Those are generally associated with high culture, with the elite, with rich people. Now, not obviously not everybody that enjoys those things or participates in those things are part of the elite culture or high culture, but generally speaking, that's what it's thought of. And there's so much more with culture I could talk about, but with that said, I'm going to go ahead and stop it there. So I will talk to you guys later.